Welcome to the Cowboy Office Show, where you'll experience expert analysis and epic discussion on key pillars of the equine industry, including sports, business, hobby, and the horse lifestyle. Your co-hosts are Jody Brainerd and Brian Dykert, industry veterans with over 120 years combined living the cowboy lifestyle. The Cowboy Office Show will help you get involved, ask more questions, and create change. We'll keep riding for you as together we learn from the ride already ridden, learn to listen better to our horse, and make our industry better for all. Each episode will take a ride around the industry in less time than you can load the truck and trailer. Drop your email at cowboyoffice.com to receive updates and never miss an episode. Saddle up as we ride into today's show.
Hello, horse world. We're going to take a peek at a changing industry as the Arabian breed is leading the way. A new resolution to the bylaws passed in fall of 2025, a new president and elected leadership, a new CEO, Mrs. Terrell O'Shea from Arizona. I happen to know her really well myself. She was the executive director of the state organization that produces the Scottsdale show, the equivalent to the Quarter Horse Congress. We asked the question, which way is the industry headed? And we've been asking this for over 2 years now. According to the American Horse Council Economic Impact Study, the industry is constricting in volume while economics increases and the public interest is very high. The Cowboy Office in this episode, number 50 for us, thank you very much, proudly brought to you by Polylast Global, the biosecure footing built for champions and made to last. Visit them at polylastglobal.com. Again, polylastglobal.com, one word. When you do your commercial facility upgrade, Polylast Global is the flooring solution you need. Tell them the Cowboy Office sent you. Welcome to the Cowboy Office. I'm Brian.
And I'm Jody. Welcome, Hoyt Rose. Hoyt, you are a 40-year veteran of the Arabian horse industry, a 25-year Arabian horse trainer across hunter pleasure, reining, and ranch disciplines. Hoyt stepped away from professional training in 2017, nearly 10 years ago, to manage operations for a friend's companies, bringing that business lens back to the horse world through FatBaldCowboy, FBC. He co-operates P&H Horse and Cattle Company. Is it Almena?
Almena, yep.
Okay, Almena, Wisconsin, with his wife, Pam. Hoyt holds an accounting degree, so when he reads financial statements, he reads it like a horseman who runs a business. I'm not sure, Brian, if that accounting degree and a horseman is not an oxymoron, because, I mean, those two, they just don't go together. Good
Might
Lord.
be an albino. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. But, along with that, Hoyt's the founder of the FatBaldCowboy, grassroots Arabian media and community platform, the producer of the versatile Arabian Challenge in VAC. It's a pilot event targeted for this August in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Hoyt believes the Arabian horse industry didn't shrink or is shrinking because the horse got worse. It shrunk because the industry forgot who supported it. Hoyt, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on. I'm really excited about this. I really want to learn from you guys. You guys have been around the industry for a while and in all breeds. And so that's exciting for me. Thanks a lot for having me.
Welcome aboard. I just want you to FatBaldCowboy. I think that was an interesting title to your podcast, and I've been listening to it. You talk about us being around for a while, but you're not too far behind us, I don't think.
No, not at all.
Look at your goatee. It's turning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm 56, so I've been around a while. The FatBaldCowboy thing, it's one of those things that it's kind of like P&H Horse and Cattle Company. I've always thought that you have to be different to get noticed. Like you guys laughing, and every time I give my email to somebody, Hoyt at FatBaldCowboy, everybody laughs or smiles. They don't forget it. So it's pretty easy to remember.
Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Way good stuff.
We're gonna talk industry, but with a high focus on the Arabs. And the Arabs are definitely gonna lead the way in the horse world as far as change, because they are in it right now without a doubt. We've got numbers. We'll talk about that, some of the reasons why, but we're gonna kind of stay focused on Arabs heading forward and change. Jody and I are in the Arab history book. We've both shown there. We've both judged with you guys. We both were USEF licensed officials up to the FEI because Rainin was in there. And so all that kind of stuff. We've been around. You're right, Hoyt. So anyways, we're going to talk about it. we're going to highlight it in 3 key areas. One is the Arab industry and the changes that there are right now in front of them. And I think it's phenomenal. I find it fascinating. I'm actually very excited about it, and I can talk about it on a first person level in many different forms. But I believe you guys, the Arab industry, the membership today has a set of opportunities that everybody else in the horse world wishes they had, and they're just not ready yet. So you guys have it. God bless you. It's going to be fun to kind of watch that. We're going to talk about the why, or who cares? What does it really mean? And, the horse industry, not only here in North America, because you've got the North American registry, but the Arabian breed, I didn't know this until recently. The Arabian breed is the largest, most volume breed on the planet. And that's true. Is that right?
I believe it is. I believe it is.
Did you know that?
If you look even back in the 80s, we brought in Russian horses, we brought in Polish horses, and obviously in the Middle East, all those horses. So yeah, the Arabians are all over the planet for sure.
Right. Joe, did you know that
I
they
had
were that
no-
prevalent?
Absolutely no idea. When I was, training some of those, because everybody in the reining horse business at one time or other has had a half Arabian, sometime maybe even a purebred, and they were always purebred types that made the reiners were always the Polish Arabians. And when you're a reining horse trainer, somebody sends you a horse, you just like, Polish Arabian. The ones that I'd had to ride were bigger and stronger and lower neck, pretty darn good minded. And, you can physically a little bit limited just because of the way they're built and the way they're made, but trying hard, and we're real easy horses to train. I like them. And some of those clients would fill me in because as a trainer, you ride what they give you, but some of them would give you a little history on the Polish Arabians and where they came from and why they thought that they were bigger, stronger horses. And it actually fascinated. I had no idea. I would have bet money the quarter horse was the biggest breed in the world.
The fact of how we've got our blinders on here in North America when we talk about the horse industry. And it's just because the quarter horse has been dominant here for our lifetime. I found it fascinating when that fact came across the table that the Arabs, and I get it. And one of the things that I've always thought the Arabs had a huge opportunity above everybody else, Hoyt, when you talk about how do you stand apart and different, because the Arabs are the only ones that have a registry for half-breds. And that opens a whole nother door of type of horse, because you can go from a driving horse to a saddle horse, which is saddle seat and hunt seat, and then bring it over to the stock horses. So you can crossbreed those Arabs and have registries to it, legitimacy to it. They're not mutts. I think that that's a fascinating opportunity. I always thought this 40 years ago myself, doing the reining horses, the crossbred Polish, Arab, and quarter horse would make one whale of a great horse.
Yeah.
And they've flirted with it.
Yeah, no, it does. It does for sure. And it's a double-edged sword with the Arabians. And that's kind of our diversity is our strength, but it's also our weakness, because when we start talking about the membership as a whole, it seems like it's hard to unite everybody when there's so many different activities. We have horses that perform in, like you say, the English horses that are a lot like saddlebreds, and in my eyes, they're a little better. Then you have the hunters that are the hunter main ring hunter pleasure show horses. Then you have hunter jumper horses. There's Arabs that jump. And then you have the main ring Western pleasure horses that are very pretty. They move extremely well. But then you also have what you're talking about, the working Western, where you have the reiners, the trail horses, the cutters, the cow horses, and the ranch riding horses. And then you flip to the other side and go to the dressage world. We have exhibitors in all of that stuff. That's definitely a positive, but it's also difficult because to get everybody in one direction.
I hear you. I hear you. And you just got me. I hear you.
Uh-oh. The gerbil's running on the cage right now, right? He's beginning to turn the wheel. It's like, here we go.
That oxymoron that Jody was talking about when you talk about accounting and business and horse trainers. I hear you loud and clear, but I pose something. Bear with me for a minute.
Yep.
Because this is the way I see the Arabs are not alone. The Arabs happen to be first at the moment, and I think that that's great. And they've led the way on a couple other things as well. We can get to that. Now they find themselves in this constricting moment. How do you reinvigorate that? That's part of the bigger question that the Arabs and us sitting here as audience partakers, everybody can have an opinion. I would tell you that your current leadership was voted to be there. They've hired some high level professionals, and the rest of us have to be a little bit respectful and patient. Let them do what we've set them out to do. I think, Hoyt, how do you unite a very diverse group of activity? This is the way I see it, because the weakness in the industry is it's trying to, the diversity in skill level, which is competition level, is actually too extreme. And that is the biggest pressure on all of them. I don't care. True in disciplines, true in breeds, and you can't service them all. You guys can absolutely get focused on, can the diversity of use of purebred and half-bred Arabs be, you guys talk about it. You call yourselves the do-it-yourself horse owners. Well, there's your answer.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that has been lost over the last 20 years in the Arabians is the do-it-yourself person. Our trainers, myself included, we'd have 20, 30, 40 horses in training, and we would get specialized in what we were doing, and we'd try to keep everybody close in our barn. We wouldn't give lessons. We do give lessons, but we wouldn't have people come and take lessons and then take their horse home and go. I think we have to get more of a coach mentality and not necessarily a horse trainer mentality. We'll get into economics eventually, but I think that would be something that would help the economics of the horse world, because if you don't have to pay for training every month, then it would be more feasible on a middle income to do. That's one area that would help what you're talking about as far as the DIY person.
Yeah. The affordability, the single component that's very common across the entire industry for the last 8+ years is how do we make it more affordable and how do we make it more fun? So I don't care what breed and I don't care what discipline there. And then I'm going to add a third one, which is where's the next generation, which is the young. So unlike the three of us and how we got started as youth kids, and I've heard some of your board of directors talk about it, which is true. The American society, even true globally, agriculture doesn't touch us like it used to. So that's not a bad thing. It's just, it's different. And that exactly leads into what you were just talking about. We've self-taught ourselves that we need trainers because that is how we develop the business side of the modern horse world. That's true. Now we've gotten to a point where if you own a horse, you're a horse trainer, whether you know it or not. So it's another spot of how do we educate a population to be more involved with horses. And to me, there's two big areas that the horse industry completely misses. Number one is horses are good for people. So quality of life, no matter what, is enhanced when you put horses in your life. No doubt about it. Second thing is the horse does not care whether you are male or female. The horse cares about your heart and your soul, and he knows it before you touch him. So those are true.
I'd agree 100%.
So that's where we all should be getting focused on. And I think you guys, then when you talk about organization, and Jody and I have a high interest in the officiating sports side of our industry, because as you work your way up in some of your numbers, you got 20% of the current Arabian registry is active in horse showing, right?
Right.
So, well, the question becomes, is that good or bad? I mean, is 20% a bad thing?
Well, I think we got to step back further there and talk about the on-ramp. When you look at the Arab world, and we had this conversation a few minutes ago, that the on-ramp for the Arab world, you start at a lesson program. Let's say if it's an Arab lesson program, a kid never rode before, comes out, learns how to brush him, get on him, walk, trot, low. The next step from that is a horse lease or horse ownership. And so if you're going to go from there to a competition, our Class A horse shows are fairly expensive. It's probably going to be, by the time you get done paying the entry fees, the show fees, the hotel fees, all that, you're probably going to have a couple $1,000 in a weekend. And that's a big leap from $50 riding lesson to a couple $1,000 and probably a $20,000 horse to accomplish that. When you talked about the 20% that are actually exhibiting in competition, I just talked to somebody today, and hopefully they're going to be on our podcast next week, is they have a non-rated, it's basically an open show that are mostly Arabs in Michigan, and they have like 200 horses come to this horse show for a 2-day show, and it costs them a couple $100 to go to it. There's some in Minnesota, and I've had her on, Danny Wilson, DW Productions, down at Cannon Falls at Simon's Arena. She has a show there where it's all breed, but she has an Arab division, and there's probably 20 or 30 Arabs that go to this show, but it's not an AHA sanctioned event. So I think you're going to see more of that unless we can control or minimize the costs of your on-ramp or your next step, the Class A horse show.
I might mention, and this is not unique to the Arabian business. This is with the National Reining Horse Association. It's with the AQHA. It's whatever at a big show. You're talking about Class A. If I would talk about a major event, the NRHA Derby or the Fitzgerald with its ancillary classes and or the AQHA World Show or their starter level world shows, the issue is, anybody that's on your board of directors or anybody that's in that management staff, they're, no matter if you think it's good or it's bad, it's about what you can do for them. And if you had that big stable and you're, at 10 head, you were a middle of the road trainer when you took 10 head to a show instead of 20 or 30 or 40. But those, like the NRHA, if I said, okay, here I am at 65 years old and I've got 2 horses that I want to take to the NRHA Derby and I want to go show, unless I know somebody that I can stall with, I'm a pain in their ass. In other words, because they don't know what to do with me, and you're shoved to the back barn. You're as far away as you can possibly get because you're not in that big sponsorship group. You're not supporting. So, and like I said, it's not unique to the Arabian Horse Association, but that to get started in that, if you're by yourself, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do. The problem's not unique, Brian. But I mean, if I were going to go to Scottsdale with an Arab, what would I do?
But the scenario, if you're coming in, Hoyt's talking about the on-ramp into the horse industry, and I 100% agree. What you're talking about is what the interested body sees some of those high-profile events, and they get, that's deer in the headlight kind of, holy schmoly, what are you talking about? Not only the price, but everything that goes with it, and I'm just a sole person. I would take you one more step, Hoyt, though, because ownership, let me say it this way. The horse industry is dead guilty of this, has been for my lifetime. We ask the consumer to reach in their pocket and spend a bunch before they even know whether they really want to play. And that is which is the barrier to activity. Any other sport, any other skill, any other hobby, any other activity, I can rent my way, I can purchase my way in and do it as much as I want and make up my mind accordingly before I go spend big bucks. I don't care. Take your pick. We do the opposite in the horse world. We tell them you got to spend a lot first and then figure it out, whether or not they can develop the skill to what level they want to play. So, Hoyt, I 100% agree. You got a couple things, the on-ramp into the horse show industry, the on-ramp into the horse industry. And I think if there was one thing that we all wanted to do collectively is get the American Horse Council together and federally mandate the equine liability on a federal law so that anybody over 18 years old takes the liability risk of the activity of horse stuff. That would minimize the insurance costs and the extracurricular, because some states have it and some states don't. If we got standardized there and so all adults assume that responsibility, now comes, can you buy your way and get active and go try and go rope and go rein and go drive a horse and all the things that you want to, and figure out what you want to do before you spend, whether it's 5,000, 20,000, or 200,000, and buy the horse, because then you want to win something, which is different. And
Right.
I would tell us, Jody and I have a huge philosophy on this one. It's the amateur pro scenario. We in the horse world have tried to regulate what amateurs and non-pros can and cannot do. I think that that's archaic. Let's really get down. Let's make it the way it should be. And the point is, one is business and two is skill. And when you get to the horse show, it's a skill level function, not a business function.
Yeah, 100%. And you got 2 points in there that I want to make here. So the Arabs have been working on very diligently, and I think doing a good job, the academy system, to where you can go to horse shows and show, and more shows are having those. Now that's at a Class A horse show, so they're still going to have to pay some of the things, but that is a great avenue. And AHA actually came out with 6-8 months ago outline of how to do that and how for horse shows to add those classes. So that's a great thing. The other part you were talking about there, about the difference between an amateur and a professional, and that video you sent me, Peter had addressed that as far as an issue that we're having, that it's difficult for somebody who trains horses all day to want to give riding lessons. With USEF, you can't give riding lessons or make any money and still be considered an amateur. So they changed the rule that you can run lesson program, but they really put some restrictions on it as far as how much money you can make or how many you can give, and you have to be supervised by an actual professional. And in that video you sent, Peter did say that he wants to figure out a way around that rule, because it's kind of stupid that you can't teach your neighbor how to ride a horse.
Right.
So
correct. That was my point about it's archaic thinking. And one of the lessons that we all should respect, the fact that you can't legislate morality and behavior. Can't be done. So quit trying. Now comes put rules in place that are enforceable and that actually get the behavior you want. And then the rest of it, you can sort that out. And the amateur function, I 100% agree. We learned that in the reining world years ago. But again, so all of us, USEF gets to be a whole different conversation, because AHA is an affiliate in USEF. And I hear you. And guess what? We had 20 years history with USEF and FEI, and that's after we left AHC, the American Horse Association. Do you guys remember that one?
Yep.
Because that's where we all started.
Right.
So, and the Western world left, did their stuff. Then we come back and we join up again. We do it for 20 years. And so there's a lot of very good lessons in there to be learned. And I'm talking about for the whole. All of that would be 100% true. But to me, the amateur thing is actually very simple. And the fact that, is it a bad thing for activity to have, if it's my neighbor or the guy across the street and he wants to come over and ride horses, for me not to show him step 1, 2, 3 because I'm worried about my amateur status? That's like stupid.
Yeah. And it has to do with money, but I still think an amateur that knows how to teach people how to get on and off and brush a horse and put a saddle on should be able to make 20, 30, 50 bucks and doing that a couple days a week, because obviously from a business standpoint, that would allow more amateurs, more DIY amateurs to own horses, because they could actually make a little money with them without losing their amateur or non-pro status. Another thing that the Arabs are kicking around right now is changing the level, trying to follow more of like an NRHA leveling program. It's impossible because we don't base all what we do off money. It's
not impossible.
Okay.
I'm gonna, because I would tell you a lesson learned: when you base it off money, it's going to get skewed. So if you want to learn the lesson of others at the moment, don't base it off money. It's a skill level function. Now you're going to get into the conversation of who gets to qualify where your skill level is. I would tell you the answer to the skill level is in the outcome of competition. And when you do that enough times, not by the same officials, you now find common denominators, and now your skill level is done by a peer group of a much larger function, and away you go, and you can't go back. So those things would be true, which would keep the forward momentum of the on-ramp of what you're talking about headed right down the path. It's not on ownership of horses, it's on skill level, and it can be done, and it doesn't have to be done on money earned. It has to be done on placement of competition. A lot of guys in the reining world have used the handicapping system in golf as a somewhat parallel. And reiners are playing with it on the non-pro side. Another conversation for another day. Are there things that you can do along the way that are objective, measurable, and incentivize forward movement for everybody? The answer is yes. You got to think about it in some new lights, but you also got to think about lessons that we've already learned. I'm talking about as a whole.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. They have been playing with it a little bit, like at the national level. We have a great program, the AWPA, the Arabian Western Pleasure Association. 4-year-olds show at our nationals, and if they're nominated for this class, they have $100,000 for both the purebred class and the half Arabian class. But they also have, and I'm sorry, but I can't remember what they call it. It's a limited pro or something like that. So it's the person that hasn't won a national champion. So if the highest placing horse ridden by somebody that hasn't won a national champion, and if I'm getting that wrong, I apologize, gets a check for 20 grand or 10 grand or something like that. So they're getting paid as well. And it's a really cool program.
One of the good things about money and the economics is when you put economics in part of the success of achievement, value across the board rises. And that is true. And that would be one of the things, it's not the only one, but it's one of the ones that when you're structurally building something, that's the bigger carrot. It's not the feed all, but it certainly is the bigger carrot. You got to just
say that
pay
again?
attention to it. Sure. Economics, the prize money to be earned or awarded is a piece of successive competition, and it raises the value to all involved. That's true. So it makes your trainers more valuable. It makes your horses more valuable. It makes the breeding more valuable, makes the sales more valuable. All of those things are true, but it is not the feeding trough for all of it. And you can take any discipline, and they're going through that now. Reiners, all of them, cutters, cow horses, rodeo. How many rodeo guys are trying to make the NFR finals? All of them.
Right.
But there's a bunch that are starving, and there's only about 20 to 40 that have a good year and have a good lick. Now their life cycle is short too, but that's a different conversation because it's
I love that, and I agree 100% with you that the economics of it, that it's hard to, well, for an example, I was the treasurer for the Arabian Reining Horse Association for a lot of years, and we had that fraternity at Scottsdale. And I also trained horses for Eleanor Hamilton, and she bred 20, 25 babies a year. She bred primarily reiners. When that thing started, we couldn't keep 2-year-olds in the barn because it was huge. Then everybody figured out that only one person gets that check, and it's only one check a year. And now there wasn't the demand for the horses anymore. So I love the analogy. What do we do about it is the question. How do we infiltrate that down? And I've listened to your guys' podcast, and I loved the comment that you had on Jesse Chase's when you were talking about infrastructure to maintain the top. Explain that a little bit.
It goes back to the beginning when you were talking about the weakness of being very diverse as a breed. I would say that weakness is very It's about how do you service your diverse breed is a huge asset. Now the question becomes, how do you service all of those diverse needs? I don't think that that's hard. Do you do them all the same? The answer is no. And that's where bureaucracy comes in, because nonprofit club organizations want to treat all of them the same. Well, you can't. The
Right.
top is the top and the bottom is the bottom, and they're not the same. So quit treating them the same. Jody and I have this conversation, and we've done it from an officiating standpoint, because I'm going to give you an analogy. And this is true, because if you take a discipline like reining, when beginners come into reining, they're coming into a tough, advanced skill level of horsemanship. Shame on us. I was against the short stirrup when it first wanted to come to the sport of reining. I was wrong, because is the short stirrup for 10-year-old kids with a modified pattern and modified rules and all that stuff? Great. We should have carried that lesson further. You should be having modified rules, modified patterns all the way up the process until you want. Now comes, what do you not do? You don't put money in there, because that'll screw it all up. You let them, when they get the skill level and they want the big prize, now big entry fee, big purse, big payback. That's that part of the scenario. And I think, and that's what we were talking about with Jesse, and we were talking about it with Sandy Worley and the AWWA, which I think is phenomenal. You guys as a breed are going through the pressures of all those individual activity demands starting to fragment off. That's what it'll hurt you in the short term if you're not paying attention.
Right. And I think one thing you said there, the breed organization, or AHA as a whole, is going to have a hard time trying to put a vision down for every local organization. Because like in our industry or our breed, we have AHA, and then we have regions, and then we have local clubs. And the issue that I see is that the local clubs are struggling, and they need to find their own path individually because of a few things. First of all, like I'm in Wisconsin, real close to Minneapolis. We used to have a whole bunch of reining horse people around here in the Arabs. There is none left. Zero.
They moved?
And
did they move?
go ahead.
Did they move or did they quit? What happened to them?
Retired, quit.
Okay.
You know, I don't train horses anymore. So that's kind of happened. And Eleanor, you know, Rod quit or retired. So my point is that geographically, whatever is going on in your area, you have to service those people. And I think they can have some structure as far as how to do it, but I think it's going to really rely on the local clubs getting strong. And again, like I said, there's a club in Michigan that's having these non-rated horse shows that is thriving. And there are a lot of little pockets that are doing really cool things. And you're right. I'm excited about where the Arabs are going, because there is so much activity right now and so many cool. I could tell you 20 different things that are happening that are cool.
Yeah. Well, we want to get to your versatility piece, which is just another example of your board of director. Was it Peter?
Yeah. Peter Conway.
Yeah. Well, he talked about at the local level, they've got to innovate. He was 100% correct.
Yeah.
100%. And that's my point about the horse world tries to standardize it from the bottom to the top. That's where we're all going wrong. Stop.
Explain.
Do we need, pardon me?
Explain.
Is it the same for a beginner coming into the horse world, regardless of
okay. I see what you're saying. Sorry.
Should the rules, regulations, and class be the same for the beginner as it is for the advanced pro? No, it shouldn't. It should be tougher as you go up.
Yeah.
And all of those criteria would move with it accordingly. If you look at any organized activity, it's the way it works. It's good for us. Yes, we should be doing that, which is exactly what you're talking about, the innovation at the local level. I believe all of them in the horse world. The downside to the horse show production gets to be another conversation.
Yeah.
Because horse show production represents two big pieces of the horse world. One is organized activity, and two is competition, and then three is value. And it's because of those successes that the value of everything gets moving up. That's a good thing. It's positive. You've got to have integrity to it in order for it to be sustainable. That's the structure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Now, when you get to competition, now there's three parts to competition, but two main parts, which is the competitor and the officials. And in the horse world, this is my direct view in the year 2026. We are dead guilty of where we've come from, and we haven't modernized. Very cloudy between officiating and exhibitors. You have too many people doing both the same. And they're mental, it's not intentional, it just exists. The mental conflict of interest, Jody will be able to speak on it at high level. We've lived it. So the point of the story is, again, how do you develop officials that actually minimize conflicts of interest as you go up in competition, and you have exhibitors doing the exact same thing? Those two things need to be moving parallel, not in and out of each other. So that's on the competition standpoint. I think innovating at the local level, God bless them. Let them innovate. Let them create. Let them get at it. The key is, where do the records go and who's keeping them? And does it matter at the local level? I pose that as a question.
You mentioned the VAC, and this is just a harebrained idea that I had. Essentially, it comes out of the Arabian horse industry being so specialized in all the disciplines. We've lost what I would consider the versatile horse. When I was a kid, I had a horse, his name was Raph. He was a big Russian bred horse because I was a big guy. And I'm 16 years old, and I wanted to ride what they called stock horses back then with Jerry McRae. And my folks could afford 1 year. So I went and did that. This horse was 16.3 or something. For a purebred Arab, that was unheard of. I went and did that. But there I learned a lot of, I would call them horsemanship skills, as far as how to deal with horses, we actually broke horses as we were kids riding at Jerry's, we had to help them break horses. So, we learned a lot of things. When the horses were being a little hot, he lived in Red Wing, which has a lot of hills. He'd send us out the door. He'd say, go run up that hill 3 times. So we'd go do that kind of stuff. Then I did well at a regional show, and then I was done. Took the horse home. My mom had a boarding facility, and we went overnight trail riding with a bunch of the boarders. So I took that horse. We went crashing through creeks and did all kinds of fun stuff with that thing. So now that's the versatile horse. And I actually tried roping off him once because he was so big. He was kind of fun. Yeah, he did all right.
How'd he do?
He did all right. He couldn't drag a lot, but he did all right. Long story short, with our industry now, our Western pleasure trainers are very, very good at what they do. They are very specific about what they do. They don't have time to think about the general horsemanship or the everyday horsemanship or just the using horse. And our English horses are the same way. So we do have an explosion of ranch because I think more people want the general horsemanship skills of this. I think that's where, when we talk about on-ramping in the local level and the VAC, what I'm trying to do is offer that as a competition, and twofold. Number one, we're going to have a clinic before so that people can learn some things. Number two, it's going to be a points-based system. So instead of competing against somebody like the officiating, like you were talking about, that people can get a points, and then if they do better the next time, they have their own improvement compared to if they were, I got to beat Joe Blow, or the other guy. They can improve on their own. That's what that's about. And I believe what you're saying about competition, and I'm kind of getting all over the place here.
We're all victims of the horse industry. We're all over the place. That's
right.
Part of the problem.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So anyways, that's kind of what that's about. And if we're talking about getting from a starting horse person to where they want to go, we have to have those steps.
Yes, and I 100% agree. And that's where I think the entire industry continues to get stuck, because it gets stuck at the top end.
Right.
And they get stuck on economics. which is how do you balance the books and how do you rent a big facility and all that stuff. But you can even look at the industry. I'm going to take us back a touch. In our lifetime, the amount of venues that have been developed and come to the marketplace specifically for horse shows has been phenomenal. It's a large amount. You're talking, there's a couple hundred venues in the country today. 40 years ago, that was less than 50. And our only place of 40 or 50 years ago was the county fairgrounds. That is where we came from. All of that is relative only to the forward movement and development and growth to our entire industry. All of that would be true. What you're talking about specifically is then how do you create activity at the local level to service your local consumers in the horse world? There's nothing stopping anybody today except for maybe one. And that's the part that I talked about a minute ago, which is liability. Because if, as adults, and we can deal with the youth can that be dealt with? Yes. But as adults, 18 and over, because in this country, that's the way we put the responsibility on them. And if we had equine liability limit laws on a federal level, man, I think the innovation at the local level would get phenomenal. That's what I think. And I think that's one of the holdbacks.
So I did some research, and actually the gal that insures our property here, I can get an event or a horse show liability insurance for $300, and I can have up to 6 events
in a year. Good for you.
So that right, that's what I'm saying. I don't know as the liability end of it. I think the more concerning part is the lesson program liability of it, because I know our insurance has tripled since we started.
Right, but I can also take you to a few other states. I would bet you the liability, because you're in Wisconsin, but if I took you to New York, Pennsylvania, you would see the liability completely different.
Oh, okay.
Way
that makes
higher.
Sense.
So,
I got you.
Which again, you got states. Insurance is regulated at the state level by state commissioners. So but it's really about what's the risk, which is about where's the lawsuit coming. It's just the way it works. So in equine liability law, if that was federally across the board, I think it would just flatten stuff out a little bit, and it would make easier to be innovative, because you're right. That's not cost prohibitive to then go do a bunch of activity. But if you, I don't know, I know New York. I used to live in New York. I ran a horse program in New York. I was in the horse business in New York. And do you know, being in the horse business, I had studs and machinery were those two factors made my insurance at the top of the risk pile. End of story. That's true. Yes. And so now that's the state of New York. State of New York's wacky.
So I got a question on that. If they federalized it, would that decrease New York's liability insurance for farms and increase Wisconsin's liability insurance for farms?
Maybe. Maybe, because it's all got to get carried out. But what it would do is decrease. Well, the lawsuits would go way down, because you can't sue somebody for stuff that you're responsible for. Yeah, that's the point to that story. Right. Yeah.
That makes sense.
One of the issues in the horse world is because you got a horse. So, and he's a flight animal that is somewhat unpredictable. So you've got to teach people the right way along the way. I think we're more than capable in today's time, which is different than it was 30 and 40 years ago. So all of that could be modernized. That's where I was going.
So guys, when you're talking about the on-ramp, and I think probably what started part of this conversation, part of this podcast, is the Arabian Horse Association membership is shrinking. Is that correct, Hoyt? I mean, it's gone down. So then the horse registrations have shrunk. We kind of take a look at the outside of this thing, and I kind of asked you before this podcast started, if we had the Arabian board of directors here, what would they, and we said, what do you guys want? What would you envision to get that membership back? What would you, to get your horses back? What would we have? And I don't know how many people are on the Arabian board of directors. Is there 10 or is there 20? How many?
14, I believe.
Okay, 14. So would we have 14 people unanimously decide that if we came up with this great idea, we would all do it? Or they're a little bit more diverse than that because somebody says, well, my best interest is a little bit self-serving. A lot of times that's what happens with the board of directors because you're volunteering your time. I'm assuming that they're not being paid to be on the board of directors.
No, they're all volunteers.
Right. So when we talk about an on-ramp, first of all, you talked about when you were young, riding with Jerry McRae, whom I knew very, very well a long time ago, and you were trail riding and you tried roping, and Brian, the same thing. I would say that, the horse business, Brian, you talk about the love of the horse and people, and that is absolutely true. But the horse business is a social event, and it's based on being social. It doesn't matter if you go trail ride with your friends or you want to go to a horse show or you want to go to a roping. It's not just the love of the horse, but it's the love of the horse when you're doing it with someone else. I think that part of the solution to that problem, how many, let me ask you this, and just because nobody's ever thought about it this way, I don't think. When I was a kid growing up, I loved it because it was probably 5-1 girls to guys when I was showing. You know what I mean? It was the most awesome thing to be in the youth in the whole world. When you're 17 years old, it's all, hell yes, I'm going to this horse show, right? So is the Arabian business, is there more women in the Arabian businesses than there is men showing in competition?
Well, in the amateurs, for sure.
Yeah.
In the kids, most definitely.
Professional level is different.
Professional level's different. Yeah.
Even with us, obviously. But the professionals only make a living basically off the clients, right? So, I mean, they're at some point in time, they're dealing with that. So, and by their nature, my wife, Amy, would just be in here probably hitting me with a frying pan if I said, well, you're social. That's part of the reason that you do that, girls, because they get in a group and it doesn't matter if they're trail riding or if they're taking lessons. I mean, I was given lessons. I'd have 10 women and 2 guys here, and they'd come in and it was an all-day affair because that's what they enjoy. That social occasion, when you talk about an on-ramp and you talk about those small shows being successful, don't you think that that's why they're successful? Because people are looking at that at that level like it is a social occasion, not just because they're going to compete because they're trying to beat each other, but they're actually enjoying what they're doing. My question to you both would be that. And if that's the case, if I'm trying to look outside the box here as far as not looking at liability, and I'm looking at about how I don't mean to digress, but I had a young girl come to one of the Oklahoma State's reining camps a few weeks ago, and she is from Kodiak Island, Alaska, right? And she's a great kid, and her mom brought her in here, and because she has a horse, and her absolute goal would be to be able to make an equestrian team at a major college. And it's going to be very difficult for her because she didn't grow up in the horse business and she didn't have that background. But she came to the reining camp and she can ride. And of course, I friend her mom on Facebook. And there's this little group of maybe 10 or 15 of these girls that live on Kodiak Island, Alaska. And they've got one old metal barn that they go ride in, and they have 4-H shows, and these girls are so flippin' dedicated. I mean, with their horses, and they're every day I see them riding in friggin' ice water, right? We'd look at this like, there ain't no way in the world I'm going to take a horse out there. And these kids are, I mean, they're fearless, and they love the horse, but they love that social aspect. That's what brings these kids together, even at that environment. And is that not what we talk about, that beginning environment? Is that not something that we should all be trying to concentrate on? I mean, that the social environment of the horse show instead of the competition itself. Just food for thought.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. I know that some of the issues that we've had on the Arab world, and probably in other breeds, is that they've been trying to do that for years, to where they'll have barn parties or whatever. And the problem is, if you got 20 horses at a horse show and the barn party starts after the last class, you probably got 10 horses to get worked, and you're going to get 3 hours sleep. So, a lot of the trainers don't go and or if the people are having lessons. But I do think the point you're making is exactly correct, in that once you get the ball rolling, okay, if you have an event, a horse show, or even a lesson program that people get excited about, like your Alaska people, when they all start getting the first time, it was probably one kid out there and said, hey, why don't ask one of their friends, why don't you come and join me? And then another kid found out about it, and it gets a ball rolling. It's like a snowball rolling down the hill. Once you get it started, it can grow. And that's one of the things I was really excited about being on here, was talking about the infrastructure and how to make sure once you got that ball rolling, how do you keep it going? Because I think there's a huge amount of excitement right now in the Arab world, like you guys have said, about all the different things happening. How do you keep that infrastructure from not falling apart?
Well, you've just identified three key ones: education, which is learning, which is information; social, which is what Jody was just talking about; and competition. And if you try to put them all, now you're back to where we started, Hoyt. If you try to put them all in the same day, same arena, it's a wreck. So that's where we start to do it different. That's where your locals can be innovative and start creating activity. Activity is going to be one of two things. It's either educational and informational so that people can develop skills, or it's social. Can you mingle a little bit of both those? Sure, you could. That's your clinics. We need way more of those kinds of things. The fun activities. Do you do the egg in the spoon and some of those things when we were kids? Because that's what your clubs used to do. But what you actually do while you're having fun is develop some fundamental skills.
Right.
So yes,
and
I think then keeping competition, because once you go to actual organized competition, that's another step, which would be different. And that's a different day, different time, different setting. So,
right. And that, that social thing, I'm talking about that starter level to, for that on ramp. It's different than the Scottsdale social level because I've judged there before, and it's like, who in the hell is having the barn party tonight? Because, somebody's having if it's not bands and bells and whistles and, food lines and catered everything, it's like, that's a social occasion. That's different than trying to get people involved and started. So yeah, I think sometimes, again, we've talked about it, we want to beat the horse to death, but that's that upper end again that controls a lot of what the industry does, and it's always about money. So
yep. That was an interesting conversation we had before too, about the Arabs and doing the big stall drapes and all that stuff. I think that is where a lot of business happened back in the day, to when they had parties and people walked in and they gave them a cocktail and some food, and then they sat around and talked, and then they brought them back behind the curtain and showed them the horse and tried to sell them. I don't think that happens as often nowadays, and people try to recreate that. I do think that times have definitely changed in so many aspects, from rural to urban, and we haven't got into that subject yet. But you look at the obvious, there's way more people living in the city than there is in the country, and not everybody owns a 50-acre farm anymore and have a couple beef cows and a pig. So it's just a different world.
well, correct. And I have my take on that one, because again, what have we tried to do? Manipulate behavior by ownership. And I would tell you it's not working. If you look at all the numbers and do all the analysis, it's not working. So let's do something different and see how it goes. And we'll go back to, because do I believe that ownership of a horse is what dictates peer-to-peer competition? No, the answer is no. And Jody hits this one a lot. He's phenomenal. It's skill level. So it's really about how do we analyze and measure skill level of riders and drivers so that they are competing against like peers, not what horse you do or do not own. And who cares? Honestly, who cares if you lease it, if you create a business arrangement and you got it for a month, a week, a ride, or whatever? Honestly, who cares? Good for them.
Okay.
So that's how do you level out the competition? It's not in horse ownership, it's in skill level. And you don't average back. That's a one-way path. It is. And I would tell you, even Jody and I were having fun not too long ago because the prime time for professionals in the sport of reining has been 50 and 55 years old. And Jody and I are now both over 65. So, and he says it the best because between 40 and 60, we can all compete your horsepower. Over 60, your body starts to change. Stuff is not. So anyways, the skill level absolutely moves by biology after 60. Got it. Can we do that in the horse world on the skill level? Of course we can, but you're not going back. You're not going back, and you're never going to be a rookie. You're never going to be a novice. You're not.
Right.
You're just going to be a senior citizen. That's what you're going to be. So
where do we go with the breeding end of it then, and the registration numbers being down? If we talk about leases and that, who's going to own them? Who's going to breed them?
I think the opportunities are unlimited. I think your breeding will increase when the market demands more because of activity, period. And,
Okay.
The education is they're not a dog. Yes, you can have an emotional bond with a horse. Absolutely. And we should be selling that. But it's a different one than you don't buy the puppy and raise it. That takes a different skill level. Where do you want people getting into horses? Go get the middle-aged, broke senior horse. Let the horse teach the rider. And then they can take those. That's where that would be the proper process. And the minute that happens and you get when you have a overabundance of people wanting teenage horses and they're all willing to spend whatever they're going to spend on it, watch everybody start breeding and training them. How do you make that good broke horse that everybody can go ride and do with?
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Well, that's where I think we're having trouble with the Arabs right now is for an example, Pam, my wife, has trained quite a few ranch horses, done quite well. And if she's got one that's any good, she can sell it in minutes. But then there's one that's not so good, you can't give it away. Right. So I think our market right now is so vast and not a lot of people want us to spend that year of riding to get one to the point to where it's broke. They want to go buy it done so they can do it tomorrow. Right. And they want the good one that they can go win on at a big horse show. So we need to find the path for those average horses and the people that want to take them and get them broke.
I think I tell you something that happened to me, and I'm 15 years old, maybe. So you know how long ago this was. And Jack, my dad, had met Ray Hunt and Tom Dorrance, old Tom. And so he sends me to Elko, Nevada, and I'm 15 or 16 years old to see Tom Dorrance and Ray Hunt together. I didn't even know who these guys were, but a lot of trained reining horses, even at that time, you kind of want to challenge these guys because at that time when they were just starting, it's like, how in the hell can you guys be worth a shit, right? Well, Tom Dorrance was, phenomenal horseman. I couldn't say enough good things about that guy. And he was old then. Thomas, the horse is always right. The horse is always right. And he, I don't even want to kick his leg out from underneath him. He said he'd get up and dust himself off at 75 years old and say he didn't mean it. And I'm like, bullshit, he meant it. I don't agree with him. But just around the question and answer session at the end of the day, I said, trying to be respectful, I said, Mr. Dorrance, don't you believe that, and at that time, you didn't say handicap, you said retarded. And I said, don't you think that some horses are just like people, they're born retarded? And he goes, yes. He said, but then it's up to us to find them a job to do. So he, even at that time, that horse that's not so good, he needs to compete against horses that are not so good. Yeah. And he, and be it on prize money, be it on, the novice horse level, but taking it to a different level, right? That horse needs to compete against just like the riders do. So it's up to us to find a structure that he has a job and gives him a chance to develop instead of going they used to go to the kill pen. I've been out of it for a long time, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's a way to do it.
Yeah. And I guess that's one of when I got into my long rant about RAF was the Arab people. It's hard to find people that don't want to be at that upper end. Their goal is to be the greatest Western trainer or the greatest English trainer or whatever. But the general horsemanship is hard to find. And subsequently, I mean, like, I still start horses because we can't find people to do it. There isn't a lot of people that want to do that anymore, at least in our breed. Do you find that in other breeds?
Oh, I don't know. 2-year-old guys the guys that can start horses are level full. I mean, they can't fit another in the barn because they're, it's like guys that start horses. It's agreed. I mean, there's not a lot of people that want to do that. And believe me, they've got a lot easier to start than they used to be 35 or Brian's age, 40 years ago.
Right.
Those things buck your ass off. And now, they're,
It hurt you.
yeah, exactly. And meant it. So, right.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, Jerry used to say, get up there or don't come back, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was paying him.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did it. Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
See,
Absolutely.
to me, that's where, again, as an industry, that's where we're missing it. Are there plenty of people that could be very comfortable doing those jobs in our industry? The answer would be yes. Do they know it? The answer is no. And so again, how do we're back to the structure, and are there business places for those career functions? Yes, there are. Yes,
Yeah.
there are. Does the average person know it? No, they don't. They only know what we continue to preach and push, which is a lot of it's driven by dollar and competition. And there's a whole nother aspect to the horse industry that does not get any of that public attention. And yes, there's plenty of places and opportunities for them, including, and I would tell you, our university systems are guilty as well. Should every ag school have a horse program? Yes, they should. They still don't in today's time. They absolutely should. And should it be opening doors to other parts of the career that they don't have people on staff? If you talked about somebody of Jody's caliber being on staff at a university is extremely rare.
Okay. Something you said interesting there was that there's different levels or different areas to where you could make money in the horse industry or have a business in the horse industry. And I think that's huge because, like, riding lessons, if you look at a riding lesson program compared to a horse trainer, if you are trying to train, even if you're making $1,500 a month in training, you're probably actually taking home 700 of that after you pay for all the, the variable costs per horse. You're making maybe $15-20 an hour working that horse. Whereas if you're giving riding lessons, you're giving 2 at a time for $50 a piece. You're making, $50-70 an hour for sure. So I think you're absolutely right. I put a post on Facebook. I believe the cow horse people do this a little more. They charge more for training, and then they do some coaching, and then they do riding lessons. So if you had less horses in training, charged a little more, but had more people come in and take lessons and that kind of thing to round out your business structure. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Oh, I would tell you from a business structure, starting to tier it out, and how do you have different supply lines in our industry similar to other industries? That's one of the things we've been missing, because our business people are trying to do it all. And the answer is no. Should they have to be doing it all? No. Can they get specialized as you go up that process? I mean, it's like Jody was talking about. I hear it all the time. The guys and girls that start 2-year-olds in the Western performance stuff, they're slam full. They can't take anymore. And you can't find good ones. The colt starters, there's not enough of them. So is there a higher demand than there are people that have that skill? Yes, there is. I'm just using that as a parallel. all of those would be true. Having the Pony Club has been around for 50, 60 years. That is the primary feeder to the hunter jumper world. And they do a phenomenal job at starting those kids. And so by the time they're teenagers, and you're going to find X of them, end up at the Olympics. Okay, but they all don't go. So
Right.
the Pony Club has had that figured out for a long time. Why don't we, again, copy something that works?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, Brian, and you and I've done the same thing too. And Hoyt, you may even have, since you've had enough time in it. But I mean, I actually had trained youth kids who came back, and now before I retired, started training their kids. Teaching their kids, coaching their kids, because it's another generation, because the mom loved it, got out of it, but now my daughter's in it. And here we go again. Yeah, it's an affair of the heart too. The horses are, and families and parents are saying, good for the horse, good for the kids. And yeah, a lot of stuff is positive.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah. So do you guys have in the quarter horse world, or stock or the cow horses, reiners, do you have like local competitions? I'm pretty sure you do.
Yes.
Like the North around here, I think it's called the North Central Rein Cow Horse Association. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those events, they have all breed parts to it.
Sure.
And so when you were talking to Sandy about the AWWA, and that eventually she wants to make it the WWA, is that
Yes.
where it's going to head?
Which is an all breed.
Right. Do you think that is a better avenue to have discipline specific events and have more all breed stuff? Or do you think that the breed should try to manage all of it?
The simple answer is you're on two different parallels. A breed does a bunch of disciplines, and disciplines are very specific to one specific group. They don't care what breed. So it's about skill level of achievement to a very specific discipline. And so when you understand that, then the answer to your question becomes very clear. And if we use Sandy and the AWWA wanting to morph into the WWA, because that would be a very normal chronological process of what a discipline does as it's being evolved. Your versatility piece may end up doing that too. Does it need to be breed specific? Probably not. Who's going to dominate it? You'll figure that out in time. If you take a discipline like reining, these are lessons learned. We had Canameras. Remember that guy from Brazil, Jody, that was up there in the North Country? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
What's the Brazilian horse?
Yes. Manuel Retamales.
Yeah, but what's the breed of that Brazilian horse?
Cordero, Chilean.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we've had zebras. I'm telling you, Bob Loomis brought a zebra way back when. So, and mules and donkeys. And so, yes, anybody can play a peer group of competition because the discipline is the discipline. So the answer to your question is, as a breed, you want to stay focused on what Arabs and half Arabs are doing. Your focal point of diversity, do you have to offer everything for all of them every day? No, you don't. Can you guys in Wisconsin do this section, and the guys in Michigan do that section, and the guys in New York do that section, and let them do whatever? I would tell you, the regulatory bodies, here's where they make mistake in the year 2026. They mandate minimums. Stop. If you want sanctioning, this is why you want sanctioning, which is for some governance, bigger functions. But let those horse shows in our world, you have to put on an open and a non-pro, and you can't add more money to anything less than what you do to the open and the non-pro. They have to be equal. But you must do that. I would tell you, in the discipline of reining, that rule is now archaic. Get rid of it. Let the affiliates, let the locals, if they want to have a all-day limited non-pro reining, let them have it. We're just beyond it. So that's the answer to your question. I was using that in some parallels because when you talk about a breed, you take a breed in order to have a quarter horse show, I have to do a minimum of these classes.
Yeah.
Well, stop. No.
Right.
If I want to put on a quarter horse 2 classes, I should be able to do it. If I want to put on an Arab and a half Arab, and then I should be able to do it. I shouldn't have to do a minimum.
Yeah. No, and the reason I asked that is twofold. There's 2 gals. I've had them both on my podcast, and she had a half Arab Rainer. Wanted to get into the cow thing. We sent her over to another guy that's local here that does Arabs and quarter horses, and did that. And she ended up switching breeds because there was more activity for her to do with a quarter horse. She found it more, she called it utility. Sure. Another person has an Arab and shows at some Arab at some Arab shows, like primarily in the cow horse and the ranch, but she shows primarily at the quarter horse foundation shows because they have all breed shows and there's more people there. And this kind of stems back to what you were saying, Jody, about the camaraderie and the experience and the enjoyment of it. That's what she likes to do. So she takes her Arab and goes and plays with the quarter horse people because she gets along with them real good. That kind of thing.
It's okay.
And should be able to.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, when I was a kid and Jack and we'd go to California, I mean, there wasn't a registered show at all. The middle class finals out there in California, paint horses, Arabs, quarter horses, grade horses, big, pretty horses. There wasn't a breed show. It was open competition.
Right.
Yeah.
So in our conversation, Brian, on the phone, we were talking about just get more people involved and let them decide where to go. There are some Arab clubs that are actually doing all breed classes at their shows, and then the quarter horse people are coming there and showing with them, and they're joining the organization because they have like year-end high point awards. Mm-hmm. So, those kind of things are promoting the club and the breed and the Arab breed, but they're enjoying it with a quarter horse.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would tell you that an officiating system done the right way would be able to judge those horses as they walk in the pen. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the breed is. It doesn't matter what, I'm just saying that there is a way to do that with an officiating system that can make it fair for the Arabian to come in and show against a quarter horse, or a quarter horse to show against an Arab.
Right.
Yeah, which takes the expert bias out. It doesn't take it out. It puts it to the back of the line of the decision process, what Jody's talking about, because that's the problem. You hire a quarter horse judge and you're going to get a quarter horse preference. What he's talking about is that it doesn't exist. It needs to, because then would we see way more open shows at the local level and regional level, and you'd see a melting pot of different breeds? The answer is yes, but you want to find the best Western pleasure horse, have at it. Maybe it's a Morgan today.
Right.
Maybe it's a half Arab, whatever. Jody's 100% correct. One of the problems in competition in today's time, horse competition, we're still playing in little league categories, and we're wanting to behave and act like we're big leagues. And it has to do, when I talked about exhibitors and officiating, because we've got to elevate our officiating to another notch. There's another level of where it goes, and that's what Jody's talking about, which is taking the expert bias and putting it where it belongs, because now it doesn't matter what comes in front of you. The best will always rise to the top. And that's true today, true next month. If you want to qualify, look at what the Run for the Million is doing in the sport of reining. You got 16 riders qualified, can pick any horse they want, and you got 16 unique horse and riders running for $500,000 a win. And so it's a great example of an age of horses. Patriot was 12 or 13 years old. He's won it. Spook's Got a Whiz didn't win it, but he goes back and then he's 15 or 16 years old. It's a parallel to what you're talking about. And I think you're both on it when you talk about the open, but it's the officiating piece. And can we do that at the local level that will actually elevate those officials over time, because that's where it all starts? The answer is yes.
So Jody, explain that again. I'm really interested in that, because I think one of the components that I see, that I believe in the Arab world, that why ranch and dressage is growing so much, is because it's a points-based system. So how do you unobjectively or unsubjectively do a comparative class such as Western Pleasure?
Well, I think, and Ryan can add to this too, but like I said, your trail classes or your ranch ridings or whatever, they're relatively easy, because I'm 1 to 10 points on the bridge, and I'm 1 to 10 points on the gate, and I'm 1 to 10 points on water. But if you go to a Western Pleasure class, first of all, from an officiating standpoint, we are deciding where do we want our top line to be. I mean, it doesn't matter if we say I have 25 professional trainers from all disciplines, and we say this Arabian pleasure horse, by the Arab description of where this horse is supposed to carry himself by Arabian standards, and this is in this spot. And AQHA says, well, this is where I want my tail to hang. And the Arabian Horse Association says, I want my tail here. So we say tail carriage doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. If a horse is using his tail, that can matter. But where that horse carries his tail on balance point, that doesn't matter. But we are agreeing, where do we want our top line in our Western Pleasure class? Doesn't matter what the breed is. Where do we want our top line? What's an acceptable range? Is it here to here? Is it here to here? We don't want it down low. We want a horse to be balanced. We want him to move like in a balanced fashion. So it doesn't matter what the breed is. Here's where we decide that we want it. And once we establish a set of norms across whatever these horses are, then we create the point system to mark the individual ways that horse moves, at a walk, a trot, a lope, a backup, how his expression can play into that part. Just like an Arabian horse, expression is very important to them. So right. And would I like to see a quarter horse with more expression? Oh, hell yes. Would I like to see them walk instead of crawl? Hell yes. But we can establish a set of norms, and we can create that and judge those horses on an equal basis. We just can't go by your rule book and by my rule book. We have to make one.
Right. We got to make it. The answer, I'd like to see him lope, Jody. So
yeah, hell yeah.
They'll get beat. They'll get beat by the other breeds by just loping. So
yeah, exactly. So
Hoyt, the answer is actually quite simple, because what does a point system do to officiating that other subjective group classes don't have? It's the subjective decision measurement of, it's how do you have accountability versus just somebody's opinion or preference. That's what you're asking about. And the answer becomes yes. The only thing can you do it? Yes, you can. The only thing you have to do is limit the volume per cut. So if you're at an open show, so it's the volume of horses you're going to bring into that rail class at the same time. That's the only thing. Well, guess what? That's not hard to do, because if you're at an open horse show and if the number is 15, then you have 2 cuts because you got 28 in it or whatever that is. That's actually cool stuff. So if you're at the open show and you have 2 cuts and you pull out the top 5 of those 2 cuts, and now you're in the top 10, and then you get your winner out of it, you just made some people had a great day. So the answer is not hard. You've got to put a little bit of work into it, and you got to quit thinking about how we've been doing it and how we need to do it. So that's the answer. And Jody's point is 100% correct, because norms define standards, and the standards get measurable. So that's the sequence, which is very different than the horse industry for 100 years has been based off an expert's opinion. And I think we're just beyond it. We have plenty of experts. We need to minimize the opinion, and we need to get officiating into a thing, because if you want more people to play the game, they got to understand it, and they got to agree with how it comes out in competition.
You know, and it's interesting, and I don't know if we want to go this direction today, but when I watch a horse, I think about the swing phase, stance phase of their legs. I think about where their bone connects to their shoulder and their hip, and how that leg comes down, if they're swinging equally in front of it and equally behind it, equally left to right, obviously, all of those things. And went through judges school, and for the Arabians, I judged, I had a large art card for a while. Those things don't ever really come up. Do they come up in other breeds?
The answer to the simple answer is no, they don't.
Okay.
One of the weaknesses, and that's an example of what I was talking about with the scrutiny needs to go up as you go up in competition. Because if you get to the nationals, then those types of criteria should probably be in there to find the best of the best on a given year, because that's what your quest is. It's a natural, so that's where it would come into play. Would those types of criteria be used at the local level? Probably not.
No.
But again, as an industry, can we be doing some of those things? Yes, and we should be. And no, we're not, because it's the same standard whether you're at the weekend level jackpot or you're going to be at the major event run for the million world finals. It's the same standard. And I would tell you, it's not serving today's industry at all. That's a bigger statement all of us are guilty of.
But if you look at a local level, it's pretty easy. You know, two of them
Correct.
take the wrong lead, and
Yeah.
one of them's running off. You know, but
They'll
then
sort
you get to the national level, then they all look the same.
That's my point.
Right. And
that's where your criteria would go up. But you got to tell your exhibitor pool that this is the way you're going to do it. Then you got to hold your officials. You got to teach them, but then you got to hold them accountable too.
So are you saying that then we also have to start with the learner judges or the new judges at the local level and seeing all those and then they have to get their feet wet for so long or so many until
Yes.
they get to do it. And that's kind of how the Arabs do it, but there's just not enough judges, you know.
Well, because you don't have enough shows.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Correct. All of those, the entire modern horse world is dead guilty of exactly what you talked about. And we do we all do a terrible job of developing officials in equine competition. That's true across the board, including USEF and FEI. They don't develop officials. They regulate them. That's all they do.
Right.
What do we want is what other advanced sports have, and there's a lot of lessons in there. And could we be way smarter and develop an even more phenomenal product? I believe that answer is yes, all day long. I get amazed that we're still not.
Yeah. Well, and when you talk about phenomenal product, I mean, think about reiners specifically. You look at them 5 years ago, and then 10 years ago, and 25 years ago. The differences in those, and that's happened exponentially in the Arabians. Hell, I remember the first time I went to Canada. Not everybody got the Canadian nationals. Not everybody got the correct lead, and now, if they're not sitting in that bridle just perfect with their ears forward, excuse me, and moving perfectly with their hind legs striding up under the rider's feet, they're not gonna place.
Yeah, not going to get a check. That's it, right? I think that's, and Brian and I have talked about this many times with the reiners too. And it's like, I mean, and we've talked about those horses that people don't want to go compete on, and maybe they're not as good. You've got your upper end, and those guys are going to go compete for a national championship, and they're going to, that's why they're professionals on them, and that's why they're good. Or even the highest level amateurs on great horses, or hell, on a given day, they could beat an open rider. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if Tina Schumacher's showing a reiner. She's a non-pro. She'll kick your ass, and she's got the potential to win the run for $1 million easily. So, but what I'm saying is that Brian and I have talked about this handicapping. We call it a handicap, but you can interrupt. You can't go back down. So if I have that horse that's at my tier 2 or level 3 horse, I can enter him in the 5, but that 5 horse can't come down and enter in my level 3, because that's where my horse sits through his competition, or where he's placed, or based on the last 10 shows that he's had. There's a way to do that. and everybody shows at their own level, and your numbers can stay the same or grow without people saying, well, shit, I can't go. I'll get my ass kicked. Well, no, you can go.
Right.
Because you're going to show horses at your level.
So do you guys do concurrent stuff, concurrent classes? Because that's one thing that I've tried to figure out if we could do. For an example, a lot of people say that the shows are too long because the Arabs have a bazillion classes. Well, instead of having a novice class and a limit class and a mares and geldings class, do you think there's a way to do a rail pleasure class concurrently like they do with the reiners, where they all run, but points go to different classes?
The answer is yes, but I would tell you to caution us as an industry, be careful. That's not the answer is not running more classes concurrently. That is not the answer. How do you, the question you raised and the pressure from the consumer, the exhibitor, the owner, is our horse shows are getting too long and too expensive. So the pressure is, how do we produce a horse show that is not so long, not so boring, and not so expensive? Running concurrent is not the answer. Different day for different activity. 100 horse, I'm going to use reining as a discipline example. 100 horse, 9 division concurrent draw is not the answer to efficiency in the day, because 100 horse is going to take you 12 hours to run anyways. 9 divisions in it to create 100 horse draw is not the answer either. What's the answer? Day X with 45 horses and day Y with 50 horses. That's maybe they're 2 weeks apart, a month apart. Maybe it's today and tomorrow. Now you got a different sequence as far as what does that all look like. But in the horse show world, let me just pose this one as a thought-provoking idea. One of the things we've all got to figure out is, how do we attract the public to our event? I don't care if it's local or national or international. We want the public to come to the event. We have got to produce an event that services then 2 sectors, the exhibitor and the public. And what does that mean? Not 14 hours. It is a schedule that is predictable, and it is a condensed form. So where I'm going with all of that is, because when we bring the public in, you're going to find new revenue streams, which will balance what we want for show production, which is what we're doing right now by having more horses. More horses is not the answer, because that drives exactly what you just said. Concurrence serves a purpose in a spot in time, but is not the answer.
So two points there. Number one, everybody that goes to a horse show, they want a ribbon. So it's hard. That's, at least in our world, that's one of the problems, is they say, well, I'm not going to go show there because there's too many horses. And then they want to go show here, but then there's not enough horses. So, people say they want competition, but they want to win a ribbon. The other part of that is overhead. If you look at, if I can rent one facility and have 30 classes compared to renting the facility 3 times and have 10 classes, I have more money into it. What's your solution for that?
The public and new revenue streams. That's my answer. And does that work from the local level up to the national world finals levels? The answer is yes. And we are nowhere near it. We're flirting with, bear with me, the horse industry thinks that streaming is part of the answer because we're able to attract sponsors and we can provide numbers that will satisfy sponsor requirements by streaming it free. That's what we're doing as an industry. I would tell you that that's a couple steps behind the 8 ball in event production. And is streaming part of the modern equation? Of course it is. Is it the answer to all of it? No, it's not. What do you got to do is create an event that provides the things that we all want. You got education, you got social activity, you got competition. So it's event production. That's my answer to that. And that would be true from the local level all the way up to the national level. And we're nowhere near it.
Do you think that a horse show is ever going to be as exciting or spectator friendly as a rodeo?
Yes, it can be.
How?
Two different excitements. But the answer is yes. When a left turn at 200 miles an hour is exciting, called NASCAR, can advanced horse activity be exciting? The answer is yes. Is it the same as rodeo? No, it's not, because that's about man and beast and who's kind of conquering who, other than the skill of the ropers. Different entertainment. What we've got to do in the modern horse world is start to put advanced horsemanship in front of the public as a very great product. And can that be exciting to find the Western Pleasure champion this? Yeah, it can. But we don't present it that way.
Okay.
Did you guys ever, I mean, everybody rode Arabians, rode some Appaloosas too, right? And back in the day, the World Show, did you ever see what they call their stump race or their barrel race? You ever compete in those? It's a match race. So they have 2 barrel patterns, right? 2. And they're set in the same arena. And the horses face the opposite directions. And then the judge drops the flag, or they have a series of lights like starting a race car, red, yellow, green. And at green, you go. And then those 2 horses run that barrel pattern. And then the first one back across the finish line wins, right? It's head to head. So then they had 50 barrel horses. Well, then they'd have 25. Well, then those 25 headed. But it's a head to head. So, if you do something like that, where someone is, like the Minnesota State Fair used to have that, and the crowd would fill the Coliseum, the old Hippodrome, to watch the Appaloosas on barrel races because they were going head to head. And the best horse would win. He might have to run 5 patterns, but I'll tell him 15, 16 seconds. So, you'd always have plenty of time to air up. They would go again. But people would love to watch that kind of competition. I'm digressing. The Rainers, that run for $1 million, that tells you that, hell yes, it can be that exciting. So the event and the way that the thing is produced, I think makes a big, big difference. Yeah. I mean, the old World Show, the finals of the World Show back in our day, like on Saturday night, it was the jumping finals followed by the junior reining. And they were full. I mean, the Coliseum in Oklahoma City was full, because they wanted to watch jumpers and reiners.
And everybody saw both those.
Yes,
everybody saw them both. So you knew for a year who won the junior reining and who won the junior jumping. Yeah. Didn't matter what your preference was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in the Arabs, there used to be like the stallion halter, because those were very expressive, wild horses. And then they also had the half Arab park, which is like the saddlebreds, big trotters. So we have that. But again, like at a regular Class A horse show or even a regional, they don't really show that there's not that many great ones like that are that exciting to watch. It's mostly the hunters going around and the Western pleasure horses going around.
Correct. But guess what we don't do? It's the answer. I hear you. Is it the same at the local level as it is at the national level? No, it's not.
No.
And the presentation at the national is going to be that much more, which means anybody that would go to a local or regional should be motivated to also go to the national, because it's going to be that much better. If we were getting it right, that would be a normal cycle of events for all of us, regardless of which wheel in the industry we're partaking in: officiating, production, exhibitor, fan, supplier, being breeder. All of those things would be true. The point to the story is, how do you take a local or regional show and service some of the spectators in your region? It's just how you put it together. But you got to you got to not talk to the class. You got to talk to the rail.
Yeah.
You got to tell them what's going on.
And that's Lindsay Reinhardt from Michigan, she went to a show and they sectioned off part of the crowd or the seating, and she sat there and explained every class that was going in for half a day or something like that. They've done that out east. Scott Brumfield did it. God, I can't remember the name of the horse show. It's a really cool thing that they're starting to do. My concern is always that it's kind of boring to watch, and that's for me because I've seen it so many times. But
well, sure, but guess what? We could even it's about the presentation. Can you take an educated audience that knows the difference and still enlighten them? The answer is yes. Is it the same as an uneducated audience that doesn't know anything yet? No, it's not. So you
Right.
got to be prepared. Horse shows got to know what kind of audience that they're serving. So at the local level, maybe it's really fundamental 101 stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, people, I mean, they have to have an explanation about what's going on. If you've never seen a Western pleasure class before, you look at it and go like, well, okay, well, that's good. In about 4 minutes of that, I'm
You're
out.
done.
It's kind of
Right.
like a cutter. A great cutter's fun to watch. I hate going to cutting fraternity because I got to watch them set up cattle for 45 freaking minutes, and I get to go watch 8 heads, and then I got to watch 45 minutes worth of selling cattle. I mean, it's
Right.
terrible. So, but the semis and the finals are a good gig when they've sorted through their 500 or 600 head or however many they got there. People can understand jumping because who can go the highest, the fastest. They can kind of
Right.
understand the reining because who can spin the fastest, who slides the farthest. You know what I mean? That's something for them to watch. They basically can understand it. But unless you've got somebody, I always thought that because there is no play-by-play on the Western Pleasure, or say that, that ranch riding, if you can pick your phone up and listen to Terry Bradshaw tell you about the Western Pleasure horses or about the halter horses and what's
Yep.
going on in there, then I can watch it on my phone and watch it happen live. Then all of a sudden I've got a different gig. So,
Yeah.
I think people need to understand what's happening and they don't know.
Yeah. That's
Well-
another interesting thought is technology.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of stuff we could do there.
Oh, we haven't even scratched the surface.
Right. Right.
Not even scratched. This platform and what the three of us are doing, if it was 10 years ago, we wouldn't even be able to do this, let alone have
No.
the conversation, let alone offer it up to the rest of the industry.
Right.
You know how many people think and will either agree or disagree with our three views? A lot.
Right.
That's healthy.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. Transparency. And that's one of the things that at least as a breed we've been trying to say is get rid of the negativity in any communication or basically social media. But I think there's a fine line between transparency and negativity. Sometimes just saying what's wrong sounds negative, but it's still wrong. So,
Correct. Constructive criticism is good for everybody.
yeah.
Being a butthead is a different story. But we can all identify that. The authenticity, well, again, what does this platform do? It lets the audience sort that out for themselves. We don't have to convince them one way or the other. If they
Right.
don't like us, they don't like us. Okay. If they do like us, they do like us. And they pick us apart however they want. That's their responsibility. We're not trying to take them in any given way. We're actually trying to have a somewhat intelligent conversation about a changing industry and an industry that has an abundance of opportunities. There's no doubt about it. So
One more thing that I'd
Yep.
love to get into. When we were on the phone, Brian, we talked about the comparison to Top Golf and that promoting golf and what can we do in the horse industry to attract people maybe on a digital or electronic avenue that could promote horse riding.
Oh, I think that one's easy. And
Okay.
this is what I think it is. If the horse industry would get out of its own way and take the breeds and maybe even a few of the disciplines and do a collaborative effort, how do you attract the answer to how do you attract the next generation is through technology. And what would I already have how would I fund it? Is I would get all my major breeds and all my major disciplines because I would create a Game Boy equestrian It's an open discipline sequence of activities that displays all the things that are out. You can have the Morgans in the air. So if you want to do saddle seat, here it is. And you can set up your horse and do all the stuff you want to do.
Yeah.
That's what I would be doing as a collaborative effort that, again, takes the horse industry. Why are more people playing golf today, even football? John Madden revolutionized youth in football through technology.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods in golf did it with golf. And what else did Tiger do? Not only attract a whole nother generation, Tiger made golf cool. If you remember, golf is a fascinating case study because golf as a sport was a very elite, very stuffy, hush hush, only for the royalty group. Remember that?
Yep.
They made golf, one of their barriers was that it was elite. They made golf cool. And the minute they made golf cool, which was the ball cap, the polo shirt, have a little fun, short sleeves, they quit the stuffiness and look at what it's done. It's a fascinating case study. Are those relative to where we are as an industry, and how do we attract the next generation? They'd already know what horses and our disciplines and our activity would be about by the time they were 6, 7, 8 years old, which are now ready for a club. So away they go, but they already know what the game's about. That's the way I do it. Yep.
That's a great idea. You got the list. You're gonna make the phone call.
Anyway, getting the clubs together, that's the chore, and I don't know if I have it in me anymore.
Okay.
I'm getting old and tired.
Yeah. Take one of the most fun things that happened, Chris and Jennifer Reynolds used to have their little rating show, and and I would always do when I was chairing the committee all the time, I would do a little 30-second clip called "You Be the Judge," and they would have a little, when they would have a maneuver, a set of spins, and then it was like, what do you think this was? Was this a minus half? Is this a plus half as well? Then I would go back and explain it. And for years, I couldn't get to a horse show. 10 people would come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw that one, and I got it right. I guessed exactly what you did the same." And people love to be able to watch from an official standpoint and have the opportunity to say, "Oh, did I get that right? Did this Western Pleasure horse, did I like this one better?" They love the chance to be able to have the opportunity to see whether or not they could pick the best horse. So I think that there's something there that was very popular, even for an amateur person who's not very familiar with it. You sit around, can you guess which one's the best? Can you? And it's like, yeah, maybe, or yeah, I did it. It's a point of bragging, right? Yeah, I did it. I got them all. I think there's fun ways to use technology in that respect.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Yep. To have that happen.
There's tons of ways.
Yep.
Hoyt, you got any other questions for us? I know this. It's not a feeling. We could talk forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna, because it's already been a long time.
Right.
So what we need to do is probably follow back up at some point in time. I believe this conversation is healthy and good for the industry, but I firmly believe and respect that our elected leaders need to be given the room to do what they've been elected to go do. So let those leaders do what they do. Let their professional staff do what they need to do. We've got to have a little bit of patience. I'm talking about how do we go along with change. Being the critic is not the answer. It's about being a little bit patient. So all of us got to kind of respect that along the way. So I only wanted to say that for my 20 cents because I firmly believe it. And I've been on that side of the equation as well in the leadership roles, doing things. Jody and I, when reining was adopted by the FEI, do you know how many people were like against that? A lot. Yeah. So whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter. It lasted for 20 years. So
right.
Historically, I would say fundamentally good for everybody. Another story, another analysis, but we appreciate your time, Hoyt. Yep. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for what you're doing with Fat Bald Cowboy. Keep it up.
Will do.
Jody and I have very much appreciated your time, the insight, the conversation, intelligent conversation around our industry. And I say that collectively because it's not just any one breed or discipline. It's collective around the entire industry. So we do appreciate that. We wish you and your family the very best. We wish the Arabian industry absolutely the best while they lead us all through some change and help us all to learn a few things. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share with your friends. And until the next time, enjoy the ride.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I'll leave you with this quick story. It's my favorite Arab story of my lifetime. A good doctor friend of mine named Todd Holbrook was here at Oklahoma State University for a while, trained some riding horses for his daughter and his wife. And Todd had got invited because he had done some endurance races here in the States. So he was invited to some big race in the desert. I don't know if it was in Oman but it might have been the Hidalgo race. Who knows? But it's one of these Arabian endurance races across the desert, right? So Todd said he flies there and he gets out and he's got his, he's going to take pulse and respiration on these horses at the end of the day. And he said he gets to this big camp and he said all these, I don't know if they're sheikhs or if they're sultans or what their title was, but he said they got these big air conditioned tents that are set up with the horses in them. And he said they've got guards with machine guns out in front of each of these tents. And he said, here comes day number one. And he said, here comes the Arabian jockeys flying in. And he said, they ride right into the tent and shut the doors. And he said, about 15 minutes later, here comes a groom leading the horse. And he said, I got no idea if it's the horse that they just rode in on or not. But he said, you're not going to go tell an Arab sheikh with a machine gun that you demanded pulse and respiration taken up his Arabian horse. So he said, I got no earthly idea who won the desert race. But he said, I just nodded my head. He said, use my little stethoscope on the ones that they led to me. He said, I felt like that was the safest thing to do. So anyway, my Arab story. There you guys got it. Anyway, until next time, stay in the middle, Hoyt. Glad to have you, buddy.
Hey, you guys, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Like I said in the beginning, I learned a ton from you guys, and I'm really excited about hearing this out. So thanks again.
Today's episode is brought to you by 4D Productions in cooperation with the Consultment Agency, a full-service agency that helps bring forward-thinking equine brands into the 21st century using digital skills and services such as website development, graphic design, social media, and media production such as the podcast you're consuming here today.